This recording is copyright. Now, listening practice tests. Test 1. In the IELTS test, you hear some recordings and you have to answer questions on them. You have time to read the instructions and questions and check your work. All recordings are played only once. Now turn to Section 1. Section 1. You will hear a conversation between a man and a woman discussing the loss of a bag on board a plane. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. You will see that there is an example. This time only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Pan Asian Airways, John speaking. Can I help you?
Yes, please. I left something on one of your planes last night. I got this number from the operator. Is this the right number to call?
Yes, madam. This is the right number. I just need you to tell me your name to start with so I can fill out a lost property form.
Kirsty Allen. That's 𝐂HEN𝐏 𝐍𝐇HEN.
So, Kirsty is the correct answer. Now we begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, as the recording is not played twice. Listen carefully to the conversation and answer questions 1 to 5.
Pan Asian Airways, John speaking. Can I help you?
Yes, please. I left something on one of your planes last night. I got this number from the operator. Is this the right number to call?
Yes, madam. This is the right number. I just need you to tell me your name to start with so I can fill out a lost property form.
Kirsty Allen. That's 𝐂HEN𝐏
Right, I've got that. Now, what happened last night?
Well, I was on a flight last night from New York to London that landed at 12:30 a.m. We were delayed a while in New York, so that when we eventually landed, I was so tired that I accidentally left my handbag on the plane.
Did you report this to anyone last night?
No, I'm afraid not. I didn't notice until I got home, and then it was really too late to phone.
Very well, madam. Let me take a few details for this form, and I'll see what I can do. OK, so the name is Kirsty Allen. And what's the address, please?
48 Wyndham Road, Richmond.
The postcode?
R16GH7.
Good, I've got that. Now, your telephone number?
Well, my home number is 020-8927-7651. And my mobile is 07754-897-432.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the second one. What was the mobile again?
07754-897-432.
Thanks. Now, do you know the flight number of the plane you were on last night?
Oh yes, hang on a second. I've got my boarding pass stub right here. The flight number was PA356. No, I'm sorry, PA365. That's it, 365.
And does the boarding card stub say what seats you had?
Oh yes, it was E6.
And you said that it was New York to London Heathrow. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Before the conversation continues, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 6 to 10.
OK then. Now, I have to take some details about the bag that you lost. It was a handbag, yes?
That's right.
Could you describe it to me?
Well, I guess it just looks like any regular handbag. It's very dark red with black handles, and the catch on the top is gold-coloured.
Does it have any distinguishing marks?
Not really. It's quite new, you see, so I haven't scratched it or anything. It's got a brand name, but that's just inside the bag when you open it, under the catch.
OK. Now, can you tell me what was inside the bag?
Quite a few things, actually. Not my passport, of course, or I would never have got out of the airport. My purse is inside, and that's got about $200 and about £70 cash. There is also my credit card and some membership cards.
Good. I'll just write that down. Anything else in the bag?
A small paperback that I was reading, some makeup, my work keys, but not my house keys, thank God, and a couple of pens.
Have you informed the police about the loss of the card?
Yes, and I've also cancelled the card with the credit company.
Right. Now what I'll do is to contact the lost property, which is where your bag will have gone if it was found. I'll give you a call back within an hour and tell you what the situation is. If you haven't had a call within an hour and a half, call back this number and ask for me. My name is John, OK?
Yes, that's great, John. I'll speak to you later. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
That is the end of section 1. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2. Section 2. You will hear a man giving a welcome speech to new students at the University of Westley. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14. Now listen carefully to the welcome speech and answer questions 11 to 14.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is John Walker and I'd like to welcome you new students to the University of Westley. What I'm going to do today is just explain to you some of the facilities that you'll find here on our main campus and where you'll find them. If you look at the map on the overhead projector, let me talk you through some of the locations before describing some of them in more detail. Well, at present we're in the university's main lecture hall. If you go out of the main front entrance, then you will see opposite across the car park the entrance for the focal point of a lot of university life for most students. This is, of course, the Students' Union. About 150 yards on the left of the Union, as you look at it from here, is another focal point for the students, though not as popular as the Union, the University Library. Behind the library is the main university refectory, where many students eat both lunch and dinner. On the other side of the Union is the college chapel, and behind that there is a small hall of residence. There are 3 other halls of residence behind the Students' Union. Behind the hall that we're in now is the sports hall and grounds, and either side of us are academic departments with lecturers' offices, lecture halls, and various labs. You'll find it all a bit confusing at first, but you'll get to know your way around fairly quickly.
You now have some time to look at questions 15 to 20. Now listen to the rest of the welcome speech and answer questions 15 to 20.
I'd like now to talk about a few important places on the campus. All students must belong to the Students' Union if they wish to use any of its services. It's very cheap, and we certainly recommend that you join. The Union provides a bookshop covering all the course books at the university, plus lots of other titles for a range of interests. You can eat and drink at the Union. There is a Fat Phillips on the ground floor, serving a wide range of fast foods and drinks. Then there is the main Union bar up on the first floor. This is where the Union parties, dances and balls are held. And there's a pizza corner where cheap, large pizzas can be served up in a few minutes. Other areas that will be of interest to students are the welfare office, the travel office, and the clubs office. The clubs office will get you in touch with all the clubs that are part of the Students' Union. These clubs vary from football to drama to potholing to beer drinking. There really is something for everyone. The Union opens up at 8 a.m. every day and closes at 12 midnight, unless there are any functions going on later. I'd like to move on to the library now. This is where a lot of you will, I hope, be spending a lot of time over the next 3 or 4 years, working and doing research. Of course, this isn't as exciting as the social aspects of university life, but of course it really is the main reason that you are all here. I therefore urge you to get over there as soon as you can, as you have to register, and then you can have a look around. During the first 2 weeks of the academic year, that is, now, there are tours every 2 hours aimed at familiarizing new students to all the services that the library offers. The library is open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., though it stays open later during final exams. As I said earlier, the refectory is behind the library. The refectory offers a range of cheap meals at lunchtimes and in the evenings. It's open from 12 noon to 3 p.m. for lunch, and from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. for dinner. They try to offer a variety of food, from favourites to healthy options to ethnic foods, and there's always a choice for vegetarians and vegans. The University Sports Hall is one of the most used buildings at the university. To use the hall or the grounds, you must be a member of the Athletic Union, which is part of the Students' Union. Again, this costs very little and will allow you to use all university sports facilities, represent university teams, and it fully insures you during your membership of the Athletic Union. This is really excellent value. For departments and academic facilities, there isn't enough time to go through all of them, but your respective departments should furnish you with maps and information that will satisfy your needs. For all services offered at the university, I recommend that you purchase a Discount Plus card. This card costs £50 and lasts for the academic year. It will then give you discounts on all services at the university. For instance, a £4 meal at the refectory would be reduced to £2.50. It will also give you free usage of the late-night minibus that the university runs to places off campus, which normally costs £1. You can see that it wouldn't take very long to make it worthwhile. The cards can be bought at the Students' Union. Well, that's what I have to say for the moment. Now, are there any questions?
That is the end of section 2. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3. Section 3. You will hear 2 students discussing the new term at their university. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Hey John, I didn't know you were here at university yet. When did you get here?
Oh, just yesterday, Thursday. I've got some stuff to get sorted out for the start of my second year, as I've just got some new subjects. Today I've got to sort out my timetable. It seems like I've got quite a lot to do this year. When did you get here?
I've been here since Tuesday. What classes are you doing this year then?
Well, I'm continuing economics, of course, as that's my major, but I'm taking an extra maths class and I'm dropping Spanish so I can take up French. What about you?
My major's the same as yours, of course, but I'm going to continue the same classes as last year as I like them so much. They're history and music. What's your Monday timetable like?
Well, at 9, it looks like I've got French for 3 hours. That's going to be a tough start to the week.
Yeah, I can't imagine it worse. I've got history for 3 hours, which will kill me. The good thing for me is that I've got a free in the afternoon, which will relax me after that morning.
No such luck for me, though. I've got that extra maths class starting then, so I'll be hard at work all day on Mondays.
Yeah, I don't envy you that. Still, the extra maths will really help your economics in the long run.
I know, that's why I'm taking it this year. Last year I really struggled with all the maths that I didn't understand in the economics, but hopefully this year that will all change.
What about sport? What have you chosen to do on Wednesday sports afternoons? Are you sticking with rowing?
I'd love to, but the rowing club storeroom got broken into and the boats were damaged, so it's not possible till the club can get enough money to repair or replace the boats. They're really expensive, so that'll take quite a long time. So as I can't do that, I'm going to try out squash. What about you?
I'm going to do the same as last year. Volleyball.
That's good. It's in the main sports hall like the squash. I'll be able to see you a lot this year.
Yeah, it looks like that. You can help me with the maths that I don't understand.
Ha! Maybe. For a small fee, of course.
You now have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the discussion and answer questions 26 to 30.
I know it's early, but do you know anything about the first assignment that we have to do?
Yes, it's already up on the economics faculty notice board. There's a choice of essays up there. I think there are about 10 you can choose from. I can't remember any of the titles though, apart from the one that I think I'm going to write about.
What's that one then?
It's about the short-term future of third world economies.
Ooh, I don't like the sound of that. It seems very wide-ranging.
It is, but remember that I spent some of the summer vacation travelling in Africa and Asia, so that has made me more interested in the subject, and I've also got some first-hand ideas on the subject.
Does the essay list mention how long the essays have to be and the deadlines?
Yes, you remember last year all the essays had to be 3,000 words in length. Well, that's gone up by 1,000 words.
Oh no, they'll take ages.
I know, I was hoping that they'd stay at 3,000 words, or only go up to 3,500, but no luck, I'm afraid.
What about the deadline?
The first one has to be in by the 30th of October, and the second one by the 30th of November. It looks like one essay a month like last year.
Well, at least that hasn't changed. But as it's the end of September now, that leaves only a month to get the first one done. I'm going to have to get onto that straight away.
Yes, you'd better. If you want to talk about it, I'm going to be at the campus cafeteria at 1:30 for lunch. We could go over some questions.
I can't then, as I'll be in the sports hall working out. How about 3 this afternoon at the Economics Common Room?
That seems okay. We'll be right by the economics course office where the questions are, so that'll be convenient for checking up on them.
OK, see you then. Bye.
Bye.
That is the end of section 3. You'll now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4. Section 4. You will hear part of an environmental sciences lecture. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Professor Wilson, and I'm lecturing you today as part of your Environmental Sciences course. Part of this course is concerned with pollution issues in our world today, and part of this lecture will look at some of the ways that the oil industry has developed to deal with oil spills around the world. Oil tankers are the largest ships to sail in the ocean. For countries such as Japan that have no oil deposits of their own, tankers are the only way that oil needed to power their economies can be moved. They are designed to hold millions of barrels of crude or refined oil in reasonable safety and without damage to the environment. When oil is released from these ships, the oil spreads out over the surface of the water in a large slick. These oil slicks can cover hundreds of miles, and they cause huge environmental damage. Oil is released for varying reasons. Accidents while loading and unloading and deliberate spills account for many slicks today, but it is ships hitting other ships or rocks which is the major cause of slicks. Because oil slicks are so damaging to the environment, numerous ways of containing them and cleaning them up have been developed. In previous years, slick cleaners would sometimes try to set fire to the slicks and burn them off, but that is rarely done nowadays because, surprisingly, nearly all oil slicks consist of compounds that aren't flammable. Combustibility comes after refining. The 4 ways of cleaning up oil spills that we'll look at today are as follows: the containment boom, chemical detergents, the sponge, bacteria. The containment boom is the most common method of cleaning up after an oil spill. Barriers are erected in the water and the oil is then sucked up. Basically, a containment boom is just a large float that surrounds and contains the slick. This method is cheap and straightforward, however only functions in very calm seas. Another method to clean slicks is to spray detergent solution from airplanes or boats directly onto the spill. Depending on the detergent, 2 things can happen. One possible result is that the oil can break up into clumps, which sink to the bottom of the ocean. Although these clumps are themselves hazardous, the problems caused by the clumps are much easier to deal with than the problems caused by oil slicks. The other possibility is that the oil then breaks down into tiny droplets, which are soon spread and become harmless. This method is well suited to dealing with the larger slicks. A negative aspect is that often the chemicals remain in the water, and they can kill fish and other marine life. A Berlin-based company has developed an alternative method for cleaning up oil spills. 𝐂HEN𝐏 has invented a giant sponge made of lignite resin that sucks up the oil, preventing it from harming the environment. The sponge comes as a mat, which contains crushed coal, whose small granules can soak up large amounts of oil. The process is safe and cheap. The sponges have so far withstood small-scale testing in pools of water with miniature oil slicks. A unique advantage is that once the oil is absorbed into the mat, it remains fixed there permanently. The downside, however, is that the mats become toxic waste. Scientists are also trying to improve other methods to fight oil spills. At the scenes of oil spills around the world, they found bacteria that seem to have an appetite for the toxic black sludge. Now the scientists are breeding these bacteria and studying them to determine which is the most effective at reducing oil levels. Eventually they hope to put the best bacteria to work in helping clean up after oil spill disasters. The bacteria actually use the oil as food. As the bacteria reproduce, they eat more and more of the slick until it finally vanishes. Eventually this method should be cheap, easy to administer, and be completely eco-friendly, as when the slick is gone, the bacteria's food source is gone, and they die, leaving nothing behind at all. So far, this method has no discernible drawbacks. Well, that's the end of the section of the lecture on cleaning up spills. This subject is an optional essay for your course. You'll find the reading lists and essay questions on the faculty notice boards along with a deadline for submission. If you choose it, seminars will be held at a later date.
That is the end of section 4. You'll now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of listening test 1. In the IELTS test, you would now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet. This recording is copyright. Help now, listening practice tests. Test 2. In the IELTS test, you hear some recordings and you have to answer questions on them. You have time to read the instructions and questions and check your work. All recordings are played only once. Now turn to section 1. Section 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a man and a woman discussing a hotel reservation. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6. You will see that there is an example. This time only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Sunrise Hotel. Good morning. Barbara speaking.
Hello, my name is John Griffin. I'd like to make a booking for tonight, please. Are there any rooms still available?
Yes, there are a few left. What were you wanting?
Well, I'm on a business trip, so I only need a single room.
Mr. Griffin is on a business trip, so B is the correct answer. Now we begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, as the recording is not played twice. Listen carefully to the conversation and answer questions 1 to 6.
Sunrise Hotel. Good morning. Barbara speaking.
Hello, my name is John Griffin. I'd like to make a booking for tonight, please. Are there any rooms still available?
Yes, there are a few left. What were you wanting?
Well, I'm on a business trip, so I only need a single room.
I don't think that will be a problem. Let's look. Yes, there's one single room left. Shall I book it for you?
Yes, please. That would be great.
Right then, let me get a pen. So what's your name again, please?
John Griffin. That's JOHN GRIFFIN.
OK, I've got that down. Wait a minute. You've been here before, haven't you?
Yes, that's right. I stayed with you twice before.
Well, we should have your details already. Let's look at the cards. Here we are. So, John Griffin from Sydney, right?
Yes, that's right.
So tell me if I'm wrong. John Griffin, passport number 876374889, age 30.
Yes, that's right.
So it's a single room for 2 nights. Is your credit card number the same to confirm the booking?
Yes, it's the same. But I want you to forward the bill to my company again, if that's okay.
Oh yes, Mr. Griffin, that's no problem at all. Your company have always settled very promptly in the past. And what time can we expect you tonight, Mr. Griffin?
Well, the plane lands at 9:15 p.m, so by the time I get through the formalities, that should take about 20 minutes. I should be at your place at 10. Will the restaurant still be open at that time, as I'll be hungry? I hate plain food.
I'm afraid it'll be closed by then, Mr. Griffin. Can I organise some snacks to be left in your room? A burger? Fries? Sandwiches?
Yes, that would be great. How about a cheese sandwich with fries?
No problem, sir. I'll see to that. Oh, the fries might be cold when you get in.
Ah, yes. Just a sandwich then.
No problem. Anything else, Mr. Griffin?
No, that's all. Thank you. See you tonight.
See you tonight, Mr. Griffin. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Now you will hear a conversation between Barbara and another man, Mark. Before you hear this, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 7 to 10.
Oh, Mark, that was Mr. Griffin. You know that nice man from Sydney who's been here a couple of times before? He's booked a single room for 2 nights from tonight.
Oh, good. Wait a moment. Which room have you put him in?
I put him in number 22. Is that okay?
I think so. Let me just check. Oh, blast. There was a booking earlier this morning. All the singles are now gone.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry. I didn't realise.
Don't worry, it's not a problem. We'll stick him in number 34. It's a double room, but it shouldn't matter.
What about the price? The double is $150 a night, and he's going to be expecting $100 a night for the single.
Well, we don't want to upset him. We want him to come back. Make a note that we'll give him the single rate and that he's got a free upgrade.
I'm so sorry, Mark. I should have let him know that there weren't any singles left.
No, it's not your fault. I took the booking earlier, but the computers were down. I should have made a note of the booking so that everyone knew. It's my fault.
Mr. Griffin has ordered a cheese sandwich to be left in his room too, as the restaurant will be closed when he gets in.
That's no problem. Just leave a message for my wife in the order book there. She'll make sure that it's prepared by the kitchen staff, and then room service can take it to his room just before he arrives.
How much shall I charge him for the sandwich?
What is it again? Ah, yes, cheese. Well, beef and chicken are both $10, and salad is $8. Just make it $9. That should be okay.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
That is the end of section 1. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2. Section 2. You will hear a news broadcast on a radio station. First you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully to the news broadcast and answer questions 11 to 15.
Good morning and welcome to 2RC, your local radio news service for the Wesley area. And here are your headlines for this morning. More news from the police into the jewellery robbery that occurred last Tuesday in the centre of town. 𝐂HEN𝐏, the local computer hardware manufacturer, has announced that it must cut 40 jobs. New routes open up at the Wesley International Airport. Plans for the redevelopment of the Oakley Woods have been shelved. A local cricket team make it to the regional finals. And get set for a heat wave. First of all, police have released 2 descriptions for the 2 men wanted in connection with the robbery at the local jewellery store Nichols in the centre of town last Tuesday. At 9 a.m, just when the store was opening, 2 men burst through the door and demanded bags to be filled up with jewellery. Although the 2 men were armed with baseball bats, the shopkeepers bravely attacked them and beat them off. Although the 2 men had motorcycle helmets on, these were knocked off during the scuffle, and the shopkeepers were able to get a good look at them. The first man is said to be about 6 foot in height, slight build, dark hair and a small moustache. He was wearing blue jeans, a white t-shirt and a black leather jacket. The second man is much shorter, around 5'8", with a fat build and red hair and clean shaven. He was wearing a dark blue sweater and black jeans. They are both probably in their early 20s. The police hope to issue photo-fit pictures later today. The public are urged to call Wesley Police if they think they recognise either of the 2 men.
You now have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen to the rest of the news broadcast and answer questions 16 to 20.
𝐂HEN𝐏 last night announced that they must release 40 workers. This was blamed on a downturn in sales and increased competition. The jobs to be lost will be a mixture of early retirement offerings and a spread from all departments in the company. Westley International Airport has been awarded by Cheap Air, the new low-cost carrier, 4 new routes into Europe. The new routes will be into 4 European countries, though the details have not yet been released. When the deals have been finalised, this will lead to a significant number of jobs. Environmentalists were delighted this morning by the news that plans by the local council to develop the Oakley Woods area have been shelved. The woods were to have been developed into a shopping area, but opposition from local residents and local environmental groups has led to a turnaround by the local council, and they will now look for an alternative site. Westley Green, a local pressure group, says they are ecstatic that the council has bowed to the wishes of people in the area. Mr. George Finchley, Mayor of Westley, made the announcement and said that the committee responsible took all available information into account before taking the decision, and he hopes that Westley residents are happy that the local council are sensitive to their wishes when making decisions. East Moors CC, a local league cricket club, has made it to the finals of the Sunday League knockout cricket competition. They will play the final at home on Sunday 30th of August against Newbury CC. Go along and support if you're around that day, as you'll be assured a great Sunday afternoon sport. And finally, get set for a heatwave for the remainder of the month of August. Weather experts have assured us that we will have 3 weeks of unbroken sunshine till the end of the month. Great news, but those of us who are experienced with the British weather will most likely greet this news with, "Let's wait and see."
That is the end of section 2. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3. Section 3. You'll hear an admissions tutor at a university interviewing a prospective student. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Hello there, it's Robert Johnson, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
First of all, thanks for coming to this interview and thanks for applying to the engineering department of Westley University. This is a fairly informal interview where I just get to know you and find out what kind of person you are. There won't be any technical questions as we've got all your educational background from your application form.
Oh, that's good.
Now, I know you've applied to us to study civil engineering, so can you tell me why you chose this field?
It's a mixture of reasons, really. First of all, I've always been fascinated by building things. Whenever the family was on a holiday, I would always be interested in the local bridge and all that. My father is a civil engineer too, so he'd always be able to explain things. And it was he, I suppose, who really fostered my interest. I'm lucky as well, because my best subjects at school were maths and physics, which are the ones that are particularly used for engineering.
So you'll be keeping it in the family then?
Yes, my brother wants to do the same thing as well, so you'll probably get an application from him in another 2 years.
Great. Now then, I noticed from your application form that you took a year off between school and university. What did you do during this year?
Well, I'd like to say I got plenty of work experience, but what I did was travel. I went to Australia for the year, and spent the time travelling and working all around the country. At the end, I went to New Zealand and travelled around there for a couple of months.
What kind of work did you do out there?
It was fairly menial stuff. I delivered furniture, worked in a pub, worked in a hotel, and worked on a building site for a couple of months too.
Working on a building site must have been good experience for engineering.
I suppose so. I mean, it was interesting to see the brass tack side of things, and a good engineer has to get his hands dirty, my father says.
He's absolutely right as well. Now, why did you choose Wesley University to study civil engineering?
Well, first of all, I know that the department has a very good reputation in this field, and before applying, I checked out the stats and saw the percentage of graduates going straight into industry was very good.
Yes, we're very proud of that.
I'm also very interested in mountaineering, and your campus here in the Midlands is within reasonable distance of Snowdonia, so I'll be able to go hiking at weekends when work allows.
That's good. It's very important for students to have interests outside of their studies. It helps deal with the stress.
I also play a lot of football, and the university runs quite a few teams in the local leagues, so I'd like to get into that.
You now have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the interview and answer questions 27 to 30.
Is there anything you'd like to ask me about the course?
Yes, the information in the prospectus wasn't very clear about assessment. How will I be assessed over the 4 years of the course?
Well, as it's a sandwich course, you'll be working in industry for the third year, and there won't be any exams for that year. In the first year, you'll have exams at the end of May. You'll probably have 5 papers to sit then. The second year is identical to the first year. You have to pass the exams in these years, but they won't actually be part of your degree. In the fourth year, you'll have to write a dissertation of a minimum of 15,000 words, and most people use their time in the third year, when they're working, to use as a basis for their dissertation. So the third year can be spent doing the hard work for the dissertation, leaving the fourth year to polish it, and study for your finals.
What will I have to do for the final?
There will be 8 papers in all during June, and these will be based on work done throughout the entire course. It's hard and a stressful time, but students usually cope with it. Anything else?
Yes, I'd like to ask.
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4. Section 4. You will hear part of a research methods lecture. First you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this auxiliary lecture on research methods. This lecture is not aimed specifically at one particular course, but is a general lecture that will be relevant to any student who must conduct research into a topic for his or her course. For most of you, this will be the research that you need to do in order to write your dissertation and theses. It has been said that first world societies are no longer industrial societies, but information societies. That is, our major problems and tasks no longer mainly centre on the production of goods and services necessary for survival and comfort, but rather require a prompt and accurate flow of information on preferences, needs and behaviour. This is why surveys today are regarded with so much importance. What then is a survey? Today, the word survey is used most often to describe a method of gathering information from a sample of individuals. This way, the results can be projected from the sample to the larger population. An important consideration to take at the start is to decide how large a survey to perform. The sample size required for a survey partly depends on the statistical quality needed and the size of the total population of the area in question. Even so, there is no simple rule for sample size that can be used for all surveys. Analysts, though, often find that a moderate sample size is sufficient statistically and operationally. A properly selected sample of only 1,000 individuals can reflect various characteristics of the total population, but it is not always needed to sample the entire population for your needs. I'd like now to look at some of the types of survey available to us, and the focus here will be on methods for surveying individuals and companies. Mail, telephone interview, and in-person interview surveys are the most common ways for doing this. The latter can be in offices, homes, or on the street. Mail surveys can be relatively low in cost. A decent response rate, though, is the major problem. Mail surveys can be most effective when directed at particular groups, such as subscribers to a specialised magazine or members of a professional association. Telephone interviews are an efficient method of collecting some types of data and are being used increasingly. They lend themselves particularly well to situations where timeliness is a factor and the length of the survey is limited. For students such as you, though, cost will be an issue. In-person interviews in a respondent's home or office are good when complex information is to be collected. It could involve a great deal of travelling around, though. Street interviews could also be useful as they are easy, but the sampling is not very scientific. We also need to look at the content of our surveys. Surveys can focus on opinions and attitudes, or on factual characteristics or behaviour. Many surveys combine types of question. Questions may be open-ended, such as, "Why do you feel that way?" or closed, such as, "Do you approve or disapprove?" The questionnaire may be very brief, a few questions, taking 5 minutes or fewer, or it can be quite long, requiring an hour or more of the respondent's time. Also, because changes in attitudes or behaviour cannot be reliably ascertained from a single interview, some surveys employ a panel design, in which the same respondents are interviewed on 2 or more occasions. There are also certain ethics to be looked at in conducting surveys. Some of you will see that the information that you will compile is of value to companies operating in that particular sector. Therefore, you must always bear in mind a few guidelines. Surveys should be carried out solely to develop statistical information about a subject. They should not be designed to produce predetermined results or as a ruse for marketing and similar activities. The industry standard for all reputable survey organisations is that individual respondents should never be identified in reporting survey findings. All of the survey's results should be presented in completely anonymous summaries, such as statistical tables and charts.
That is the end of section 4. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of listening test 2. In the IELTS test, you would now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet. This recording is copyright. Help Now Listening Practice Tests. Test 3. In the IELTS test, you hear some recordings and you have to answer questions on them. You have time to read the instructions and questions and check your work. All recordings are played only once. Now turn to Section 1. Section 1. You will hear a conversation between a man and a woman as the man joins a local library. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. You will see that there is an example. This time only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Hello, I'm new in the area and I'd like to join the library, please.
That's no problem. Let me get an application form. Here we are. Now, all we have to do is fill this in, and then I'll get you to sign it and you'll be a member.
Great.
Now then, what's your full name?
Peter Adrian Camden.
How do you spell Camden?
C-A-M-D-E-N.
C-A-M-D-E-N?
Yes, that's right.
So, Camden is the correct answer. Now we begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, as the recording is not played twice. Listen carefully to the conversation and answer questions 1 to 5.
Hello, I'm new in the area and I'd like to join the library, please.
That's no problem. Let me get an application form. Here we are. Now, all we have to do is fill this in, and then I'll get you to sign it and you'll be a member.
Great.
Now then, what's your full name?
Peter Adrian Camden.
How do you spell Camden?
C-A-M-D-E-N.
C-A-M-D-E-N?
Yes, that's right.
Right. And what's your address?
Flat 5, 53 Green Street, Finsbury.
OK, got that. That's near here, isn't it?
Yes, just 5 minutes walk.
What's the postcode?
7434.
Got that now. Now, can you tell me your date of birth?
8th of July 1976. And
what's your telephone number?
Well, I don't have a home number, but I've got a mobile.
That'll do fine.
It's 06634 982 746. Did you get that?
Some of it. Can you say it again?
The code's 06634 and the number's then 982 746.
Right. That's almost it. Now I need some kind of identification to prove where you live. Do you have a driving licence or a passport or anything like that?
I'm afraid that everything I have has got my old address on it. Do you need it now?
No, not now, but you won't be able to take anything out until we see that.
Wait a minute. I've got a letter addressed to me here that arrived this morning. Will that do?
Oh yes, that's a good idea. That will be fine. Let's look. OK, well that's finished.
Before the conversation continues, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 6 to 10.
Could I ask you a few questions? The council that runs the library is running a survey to find out what kind of books people prefer so that they can direct their buying.
Yeah, no problem.
OK, so what type of books do you like?
Well, I'm very keen on mysteries. You know, when a detective is trying to find out who did the murder. Historical novels interest me too. Romance, never. My sister loves them, but they bore me to tears. I quite like books on animals too. I get them out sometimes. Not science fiction either. Too weird.
Well, I think that's it then.
Good. Oh, do you charge anything?
The library is free unless you want to rent out some of our videos or DVDs.
And how much is that?
Well, we rent videos out for $4 each and DVDs are $6. You must leave us a deposit of $60 as well. That's returnable, of course.
I don't think I'll get any of those just yet. Can I pay later?
Sure, just give the money in when you're ready to rent them out.
Well, thanks very much. You've been very helpful. I might take a book out now for the weekend, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Well, goodbye.
That is the end of section 1. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to Section 2. Section 2. You will hear a radio presenter interviewing a doctor. First you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14. Now listen carefully to the interview and answer questions 11 to 14.
Hello everyone. I've just been joined in the studio by Dr. Matthew Johnson. Dr. Johnson works at the Wesley General Hospital and he's here today to tell us all about giving blood. Good morning, Matthew.
Good morning.
So Matthew, why is it important for us to give blood?
Donating blood is not important. It's actually vital that people do this. Without donated blood, thousands of people would die every year, and it's something that could affect everyone. We all expect blood to be there for us, but barely a fraction of those who can give do. Yet, sooner or later, virtually all of us will face a time of great vulnerability in which we will need blood, and that time is all too often unexpected. The need for blood is great. On any given day, an average of 38,000 units of red blood cells are needed. Blood transfusions are often needed for victims of things such as accidents and burns, heart surgery, organ transplants, and patients receiving treatment for leukemia, cancer or other diseases. In 2002, nearly 29 million units of blood components were transfused, and with an ageing population and advances in medical treatments and procedures requiring blood transfusions, the demand for blood continues to increase.
We really need that much?
Yes, and we need it now. Blood supplies nationwide have reached critically low levels, with less than 1 day's supply of several blood types. Thousands of accident victims, cancer patients, premature babies, and countless others who need blood to stay alive are hoping you'll care enough to help them. All blood types are needed. You now have some time to look at questions 15 to 20. Now listen to the rest of the conversation and answer questions 15 to 20.
What are the different types?
It's a bit more complicated than that. First we collect the whole blood from donors, and then it's sorted into the different types, which are basically O, A, B or AB, though there are also divisions here. Then the blood is split into its constituent parts. We divide it into 4 basic parts. First there are the red blood cells, then the white blood cells, then things called platelets, and finally plasma. This is shipped off to hospitals where they use the blood parts that the patients need.
What are the different parts used for?
Well, as I said before, the whole blood is your blood in its natural state, and something we rarely use. It's much more useful to us to have it separated into its component parts. Red blood cells are what everyone associates with blood, i.e. it's red. It's widely used to replace lost blood during surgery or when people hemorrhage. Its main function is to carry oxygen to cells. White blood cells are the most important part of the body's immune system, and they're used for patients whose normal defense systems aren't working properly. Platelets are crucial for making your blood clot, and we need to give them to patients who suffer from illnesses that deplete their natural levels of platelets, or they will bleed to death. Finally, plasma is what carries the other parts of blood around, and needs to be administered with any of the other components. Take away the red blood cells, and this is actually yellow.
So that's what blood is all about. Now, you're here in Wesley today to collect blood. Can you tell us where and when we can donate?
Of course. We're set up here today, that's Wednesday, and for the next 2 days at Wesley General Hospital at the outpatients department. Come along between 9 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. and we'll be able to deal with you within 1 hour. And let me tell you a few things that will calm your fears about giving blood. Aside from a brief needle prick, it doesn't hurt to give blood. Your body will replace the blood you donate within days of your donation. And finally, you can't catch AIDS, hepatitis, or any other disease by giving blood. And of course, you get a cup of tea and a biscuit afterwards.
And can anyone give blood?
Almost everyone. Donors must be in generally good health, be at least 17 years of age, weigh no less than 110 pounds, have not received a tattoo within the past year, and not have donated whole blood within the past 56 days. We screen donors with a series of questions before we take the blood, so if you're unsure, come down and we'll let you know. Please come down and see us. Remember, if you can donate 1 pint of blood, this can save up to 3 lives.
Well, thanks, Matthew. I, for one, will definitely be going down to Wesley General to donate.
That is the end of section 2. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3. Section 3. You will hear a conversation between 3 people about use of university computers. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 27. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 27.
Hello there, do you work in the computer room?
Yes, I do. Can I help you?
Well, I'm a first year and I know that I'll need to use the computer room for my work, as I don't have a computer of my own. So I thought I'd get down here and see what I have to do in order to get time on one of the university's computers.
Okay, there are 4 computer labs open to undergraduates. The others can only be used by the staff and postgraduates. The names of the 4 labs you can use are Wimborne, Franklin, Salisbury and Court. Wimborne and Court are in this building, the Johnson building. Franklin is in the Computer Sciences building and Salisbury is in the library.
So I can use them whenever I like?
Well, you can use them, but not whenever you like. As you can imagine, they're in quite a lot of demand, so you have to reserve your time on a computer. In each of the labs there is a reservation book, and you can reserve your time on a computer in that for 2 hours daily. If a computer is free, though, you can go on it straight away. It's quite straightforward, but be sure to always write your name in the reservation book in pen, or someone can rub it out and put their name in instead.
Oh my God, does that really happen?
I'm afraid so, and far more often than you would think. When people are stressed about their assignments, they'll do anything to get some time on the computers. Better not try it yourself, though, or you'll be banned from the computers for the rest of the academic year, and your password and username will be taken away.
That reminds me, I've got to get a username and password. How do I go about that then?
Well, what I'll do is to pass you over to my colleague Jane, as she's in charge of all that. Jane?
Yes, Dave?
I've got a new student here wanting to find out about usernames and passwords. Can you help him out with that?
Yeah, sure. Hi there.
Hi.
Well, it's a straightforward process. First of all, tell me your name and I'll type it into the system.
James Smith.
Right, let me do that. You see, all students are automatically given a username and then they just choose a password themselves. OK, so your username is JamesSmith2. That's all small case. That means there must be more than one of you at the university at the moment. Well, what do you want your password to be?
I think I'll choose biology, as that's the subject that I'm studying, though my girlfriend Mary will be upset that it's not her name I'm using.
Well, that's all done. You can now use any of the 4 undergraduate computer labs.
By the way, can I print out stuff at the labs?
Yes, you can, but sometimes it's not quick. When you print, it goes into a queue and it'll be left in a tray in Franklin, as that's where all the main printers are. The good bit is that, although last year it cost 3p per page, now it doesn't cost you anything.
You now have some time to look at questions 28 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the conversation and answer questions 28 to 30.
I don't really know much about computing. Is there any training available?
Yes, we have introductory courses for all new students. There is beginner, intermediate and advanced. Which would you like to go for?
Well, I have done some, but I don't know if I'm up to anything more than beginner. I'd better stick with that. Intermediate could be too tough.
Well, your course is in Franklin then. We're in Court now. You know where that is.
That's in this building too, isn't it?
No, that's Wimborne you're thinking about. Franklin's over in the Computer Sciences building. Anything else?
I don't know what time the course starts.
Let's have a look then. Advanced starts at 4:30 in the afternoon on Mondays, but yours is the day after at 5 in the afternoon.
Are there any other times, as I've got a part-time job then?
Yes, you could try Thursday at 2 p.m. How's that?
Even worse, as I've a tutorial then. Anything else?
No, that's it.
I'll have to rearrange work then. I can't miss the tutorial.
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4. Section 4. You will hear part of a university seminar given by a student. First you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good afternoon, everyone. In today's seminar, we're going to continue listening to different students giving us a presentation on the subject of their term paper. Now, today is Hillary's turn. So, what are you going to talk about today, Hillary?
Well, some of you will know that I was brought up when I was young in Japan, and I'm going to do my term paper on Japan's bullet trains, which have revolutionized their rail industry. Japan's main island, Honshu, is covered by a network of high-speed train lines that connect Tokyo with most of the island's major cities and Fukuoka on the island of Kyushu. Japan's high-speed trains are called Shinkansen, but are known to us as bullet trains. The Japanese bullet train system is credited with being the world's first purpose-built high-speed railway, and the model and inspiration for all other similar type systems running today, such as the French TGV. The reputation it has earned for safety, speed, and punctuality is unsurpassed. I'd like to give you some figures about that. As regards safety, there has never been a death on the bullet train system since its inception in 1964, other than that caused by deliberate passenger misadventure. As far as speed is concerned, the bullet train holds the current world record for the fastest average speed between two station stops, which was 261.8 kph between Hiroshima and Kokura. The train travelled 192 kilometres in 44 minutes. This record is from the 500 series Nozomi trains, running at a maximum speed of 300 kilometres an hour between Shin Osaka and Hakata. I'll talk more about them later. The punctuality puts European train services to shame. Most trains arrive at their destination after several hours to within the second. In 1 year, the total time that all bullet trains were late by was 12 seconds. This statistic is hard to believe, but it would be difficult to prove otherwise, and that's what the rail authorities in Japan have told us. Now I'd like to tell you a bit about their history. The first bullet train was introduced in 1964 by Central and West Japan Railways for the Tokyo to Osaka route. Most of these old trains have now been discontinued. There have been several bullet train models since then. The most recent ones have been the 300, 500 and 700 series, and it's the 500 series one that can travel at 300 kph. The bullet trains operating in Japan today are of the three following categories: Nozomi, Hikari and Kodama. The Nozomi trains stop only at the most important stations and reach Osaka from Tokyo in only about 2.5 hours, and it's the most modern of bullet trains that serve as Nozomi. Hikari trains stop a little bit more frequently than Nozomi trains and need roughly 3 hours to reach Osaka from Tokyo. Kodama trains stop at all stations, and they are the local trains among bullet trains. Older models of bullet trains serve as Kodama. I'd like now to talk a little bit about the technology involved in bullet trains. The Shinkansen bullet trains consist of electrically powered cars. That means basically all individual cars are equipped with electric motor driving systems. This is in contrast to locomotive trains, in which the locomotive pulls the passenger coaches. The realization of the high-speed Shinkansen with the electric train system had a great significance. The French train à grande vitesse, or TGV, runs on a centralized power system, in which the heavyweight, high-output locomotives at both ends pull the passenger coaches. It's a system suitable to European railways, which run basically on straight tracks in wide plains with solid foundations. However, it is unsuitable in Japan, where the ground is flimsy and the tracks full of curves and undulations, and intercity distances are short, making it necessary for the trains to accelerate and decelerate frequently. One of the advantages of the electric car system is that the motor functions as a brake to reduce the speed of the train. When the power feed to the electric car motors is stopped, the wheels continue revolving, keeping the motors rotating, resulting in electricity generation by magnetic induction. As the force acts in the direction opposite to the axle's motion, it functions as a brake to the train. All the motors equipped on each coach can be utilized effectively to reduce the speed, making the electric train system advantageous on Japanese railways, which involve frequent deceleration and acceleration. In addition, by virtue of the remarkable progress achieved recently in semiconductor technologies, the electric train system has undergone tremendous improvements in power, operability and safety administration, so the system is becoming increasingly advantageous.
That is the end of section 4. You'll now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of listening test 3. In the IELTS test, you would now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet. The listening answer sheet. This recording is IELTS Help Now Listening Practice Tests. Test 4. In the IELTS test, you hear some recordings and you have to answer questions on them. You have time to read the instructions and questions and check your work. All recordings are played only once. Now turn to Section 1. Section 1. You will hear a conversation between a man and a receptionist on the subject of joining a surgery. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. You will see that there is an example. This time only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Hello, I've just moved to Melbourne for a new job and I've been advised to register with a new doctor for my family and myself. I think that this surgery is the nearest one to where I live.
What's the name of the road that you live in, sir?
Dawson Road.
So, Dawson Road is the correct answer. Now we begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, as the recording is not played twice. Listen carefully to the conversation and answer questions 1 to 5.
Hello, I've just moved to Melbourne for a new job and I've been advised to register with a new doctor for my family and myself. I think that this surgery is the nearest one to where I live.
What's the name of the road that you live in, sir?
Dawson Road.
Yes, that's in our area. Would you like to register with us now?
Yes, please.
Right, I'll just have to take some details. First of all, could you give me your name?
It's Mike Jacobs. Jacobs.
And your family?
My wife's name is Janet, and I have one little boy whose name is Rod.
Ron?
No, Rod. R-O-D.
Good, that's fine. And what is your address here in Melbourne?
52 Dawson Road, Highfield, Melbourne.
Highfield. Highfield. Good. And I'll need to know your health card number.
It's NH871812C. What about my family?
Oh, only yours for now. Do you know the name of your old doctor?
It was Dr. 𝐂HEN𝐏 in Perth.
Now, we've got 4 doctors here. There's Dr. Susan Larkins, Dr. Kevin White, Dr. James Nicholson and Dr. Linda Williams. Which one would you like to register with?
Oh, I didn't think of that. Well, I think I would like a man as my doctor. I'll go for the last one. Was that one a man?
No, that was Dr. Linda. How about Dr. Kevin?
Yes, that will be fine.
Right, Dr. White it is. Will that be the same for your family?
Oh yes, my wife might not want a man as her doctor. Well, we'll leave it as it is for now, and my wife can change if she wants to.
Before the conversation continues, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 6 to 10.
I'd like to make an appointment now for my wife. She wants to come in at the end of the week.
How about this Friday morning? That's Friday the 21st.
I don't think she can make the morning. Any openings in the afternoon?
There are appointments available at 2, 2:30 and 3:30.
We'll take the first one, please.
OK, that's done.
Oh, and what shall my wife do if she wants to switch doctor?
She can just give us a call here. Do you want to take the number down?
Yes, please.
It's 72539829.
Can you give me your name, please?
My name's Angela, but there are 2 other girls who might be on duty as well. Their names are Elizabeth and Rachel, but it doesn't matter who's on duty. Anyone can take care of it.
Now, what do we do if we need to call out a doctor during the night?
We've got a rotation system with the doctors in the area. There's a mobile number you can call and that'll get through to the doctor who's on duty.
What's that number?
It's 0506 759 3856.
Got that. I didn't ask about any charges.
Like all Australia, prescriptions have to be paid for at the chemist at the prevailing rate. Some things like vaccinations for travel and insurance report we make a standard charge for, and I can give you a price list for those. Consultations, though, are under the National Health Service, so they'll be free.
Great. Well, that's all. Thanks and goodbye.
Goodbye.
That is the end of section 1. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to Section 2. Section 2. You will hear a man giving a guide talk to new students at a university library. First you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully to the guide talk and answer questions 11 to 16.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to Wesley University Library. This is a 20-minute tour around the library to show you all the facilities and all you'll need to know to start off your life here as a student at the university. What I'll start by doing is telling you about what you need to do to join the library. Then I'll briefly tell you about our facilities, and then I'll guide you quickly round and show you everything. So, to join the library, you need to go to the reception between the hours of 9 AM and 5 PM. After that, the reception closes, though all the other facilities will stay open until 10 PM. At the reception, they'll give you an application form. After you fill that in, you'll have to give us the fee of £5, which you have to give us every year that you're a member of the library. We will also need to see your university card to confirm that you're a student of the university. And finally, we'll need 2 passport photos, one for our records and the other for your library card. You will need to do all this as soon as possible so you'll be able to use the facilities at once. I'm sure your workload will begin to build up soon. Now, let me tell you a bit about the facilities. The library opens daily from 8 AM to 10 PM, though, as I told you earlier, the reception operates only between the hours of 9 AM and 5 PM. Although this is extended to 6:30 PM on Fridays to give students more time to organise their book requirements for the weekend. The reception is closed on Sundays. Undergraduate students are permitted to take out 4 books at any one time, and each book may be borrowed for a period of 2 weeks. Postgraduates may borrow 6 books at a time. Borrowing time can be extended by a period of 1 week per book if the student comes into the library in person with the book in question, so it can be re-stamped. We do not renew book borrowing over the phone. If you are late in returning any book, then you will be charged a fine of £2 for every week that you are late. You won't be able to take out any other books until this fine is paid. This is not a method of earning money for the library, but merely what we have to do to ensure that all students have access to all the books that they will need.
You now have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen to the rest of the guide talk and answer questions 17 to 20.
OK then, on to the layout of the library. We're on the ground floor of the library at the moment. Here we have the reception, the computers, which you can use to search for books and their location, and the bathrooms, which are behind the reception. The rest of the ground floor is taken up by the non-lending section of the library. Here we keep all the books which are either too valuable or are used too much to lend out. You can reserve time with these books at reception and use them during any time that the library is open, but, of course, you may not remove them from the library. On the first floor above us we have the arts section, which includes books that students will need for subjects such as languages, literature, art and history. On the second floor is the science section. We'll see these in a minute. Of course, individual departments will usually have their specialist libraries in their buildings, though the computer catalogues here will list them so you know where to find everything, whether it's here or in the specialist libraries. Finally, in the basement we have the stack system, which contains the university collection of magazines and journals that we have collected and to which we subscribe. If there's anything that we do not have or that you can't find, please go to reception and let them know the details. The university operates a swap system with other universities, and we can arrange for volumes that we do not possess to be sent here on a limited loan. Well, those are the basic details about the university library.
That is the end of section 2. You'll now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3. Section 3. You'll hear a tutor and 3 students discussing their work. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 27. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 27.
Good morning everyone. Well, in today's tutorial we're going to discuss the essays that you have to submit by the end of next week. Some of you will have already started them, which is good, and if you haven't, well that's okay, but you'll have to get a move on. So, let's begin with you, Simon. What's happening with you?
Well, I've made a start on it. I researched the background quite extensively last weekend. I should get to the writing stage tomorrow with a bit of luck, and I'll get finished at the weekend.
What are you writing about?
I decided to look at the car manufacturing company Jaguar, examine the problems they had with reliability in the 1970s and 80s, how they dealt with it, and how it affected their marketing and sales strategy.
That sounds pretty interesting. Any problems with that?
At the start I had problems getting information from that far back, but after rooting around in the library I found some magazines which gave me information and also gave me references to find other stuff. It seems now the only problem is keeping to the 4,000 word limit. It just seems that I have so much to write about. It seems I'll need 5,000 or even 6,000 words to be able to cope.
Yes, your essay title seems to me to be very wide-ranging. Would you think about cutting out part of it? How about looking at their sales and marketing strategy, but only mentioning the problems in the 70s and 80s and not going too far into it?
That's a good idea. That will make it much easier to handle. By the way, how do you want us to hand in our work? Do you want us to drop in a hard copy to your office?
You could do that, but I'd prefer it if you just emailed it to me as an attachment. You've all got my address. If not, give it to the secretary, clearly marked that it's for me. Right, Jennifer, how about you?
I've not really got going on it yet, but I have decided on a subject. I'll try and do some research during the rest of this week, and I should get writing this weekend.
Okay, what are you writing about then?
I want to look into how supermarkets use market surveys to develop their products.
Will you have enough time to find out what sort of things that the supermarkets do? You won't have much time for that.
It should be okay. I've had a look in the stack system in the library and I found a magazine that surveyed all the UK major supermarkets and a trade publication that analysed the same things in Canadian supermarkets.
Be careful about using their conclusions too much. The university takes a tough stance on plagiarism. Make sure you properly list where you get your information from in a bibliography and try and do your own analysis. Get going too, as that analysis will take a bit of time.
Okay, thanks.
You now have some time to look at questions 28 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the discussion and answer questions 28 to 30.
And Melanie, how is your work going?
I'm a bit behind, I'm afraid. I was sick all last week and the weekend with flu. I've got a subject, I think, but I've not done any work on it yet. Is there any chance I can get an extension to the submittal date?
The policy of the department is not to give any extensions unless there are extenuating circumstances. Do you have a doctor's certificate or anything?
I went to the doctor's, but I didn't get a note as I didn't realise I would need it. The doctor will have a record of me, though, as I got a prescription. I'll go back and get one.
Yes, do. If you get one, then there shouldn't be a problem getting an extension. Without it, though, you'll be in trouble. What subject are you considering anyway?
I thought I'd do an overview of the UK mortgage interest rates and their effect on housing sales trends over the last 10 years. I thought it might be of interest because of the huge increases of house prices over the last decade.
Certainly an interesting subject, and it should be no great problem getting information, as this has been fairly well documented. There's a lot of work again, though, and you'll really need to get cracking on it, even with the extension, if you get one.
Well, I've not got much on for the rest of the week, and I've set aside the weekend to really get to grips with it.
Good. Now, is there anything else?
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4. Section 4. You will hear part of an Earth Sciences lecture. First you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good afternoon and welcome to this Earth Sciences lecture. Today we're going to look at tidal waves, or more correctly, tsunami. Deep below the ocean's surface, tectonic plates collide, and every once in a while these forces produce an earthquake. The energy of such submarine earthquakes can produce tidal waves which radiate out in all directions from the epicenter of the quake, moving at speeds of up to 500 miles per hour. When these waves reach shore, they can cause enormous destruction and loss of life. Tidal waves are actually misnamed. They are not caused by tides. A more accurate word for them is the Japanese name tsunami, which means harbour wave. They are also sometimes called seismic sea waves, since they can be caused by seismic disturbances such as submarine quakes. However, that name is not really accurate either, since tsunami can also be caused by landslides, volcanic eruptions, nuclear explosions, and even impacts of objects from outer space, such as meteorites, asteroids, and comets. Earthquakes, though, are the largest cause of tsunami. Tectonic plates cover the world's surface, and their movement can be detected anywhere in the world. Some areas of the world are more prone to greater movement, and it is in these places that the largest waves can occur. Large vertical movements of the Earth's crust occur at plate boundaries, which are known as faults. The Pacific Ocean's denser oceanic plates are often known to slip under continental plates in a process known as subduction. And subduction earthquakes are the most effective in generating tsunamis. A tsunami can be generated by any disturbance that displaces a large water mass from its equilibrium position. In the case of earthquake-generated tsunamis, the water column is disturbed by the uplift or subsidence of the sea floor. Submarine landslides, which often accompany large earthquakes, as well as collapses of volcanic edifices, can also disturb the overlying water column as sediment and rock slump down, and are redistributed across the sea floor. Violent submarine volcanic eruptions can create an impulsive force that uplifts the water column and generates a tsunami. Conversely, supermarine landslides and cosmic body impacts disturb the water from above as momentum from falling debris is transferred to the water into which the debris falls. Generally speaking, tsunamis generated from these mechanisms, unlike the devastating Pacific-wide tsunamis caused by earthquakes, dissipate quickly and rarely affect coastlines distant from the source area. Tsunamis are very hard to detect since they cannot be seen when they are in the deep ocean. The distance between two wave crests can be 500 kilometers, and because of this, the wave height is only a few feet. Because the rate at which a wave loses its energy is inversely related to its wavelength. Tsunamis not only propagate at high speeds, they can also travel great transoceanic distances with limited energy losses. As the tsunami reaches shallow water, however, its speed decreases, but the energy it contains remains about the same. Instead of travelling fast, the wave rises high. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has set up a seismic detection system to monitor earthquakes and predict the possible arrival of tidal waves for Pacific countries. Buoys at sea can also detect water pressure changes that can indicate tsunamis moving through the ocean. But when tsunamis originate near the shore, there is often little chance to warn people. Let's look at some examples of tsunami and their causes and effects. Some can be relatively harmless. In 1992, an offshore landslide caused a tidal wave of only about 3 feet high that struck at low tide, so Humboldt County, where it hit, got off easy with no casualties. On January 13th in 1992, a Pacific Ocean earthquake off the coast of San Salvador, registering 7.6 on the Richter scale, did not cause any ocean disturbance at all. However, a recent tidal wave which struck Papua New Guinea on July 17, 1998, was 23 feet high and killed at least 1,200 people. This wave was caused by a magnitude 7.1 submarine earthquake. On July 17, 1998, a Papua New Guinea tsunami killed roughly 3,000 people. A huge underwater volcanic eruption 15 miles offshore was followed within 10 minutes by a wave some 40 feet tall. The villages of Arop and Warapu were destroyed. One of the worst tsunami disasters engulfed whole villages along Sanriku, Japan, in 1896. An underwater earthquake induced a wave of 35 feet, drowning some 26,000 people. Finally, about 8,000 years ago, a massive undersea landslide off the coast of Norway sent a 30-foot wall of water barreling into the uninhabited north coast of Europe. If this were to recur today, as scientists say it could, almost anywhere in the world, it would cost billions, if not tens of billions of dollars, to repair the damage to coastal cities and kill tens of thousands of people.
That is the end of section 4. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of listening test 4. In the IELTS test, you would now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet. To the listening answer sheet. This recording is copyright. IELTS Help Now listening practice tests. Test 5. In the IELTS test, you hear some recordings and you have to answer questions on them. You have time to read the instructions and questions and check your work. All recordings are played only once. Now turn to Section 1. Section 1 You will hear a conversation between two women as one of the women buys a bus pass. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. You will see that there is an example. This time only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Good morning, I'm here to get a student bus pass, please.
Of course, madam. Do you want to buy a month bus pass, a 6-month bus pass, or a year pass?
Oh, just a month pass, please.
So, 1 month is the correct answer. Now we begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, as the recording is not played twice. Listen carefully to the conversation and answer questions 1 to 5.
Good morning, I'm here to get a student bus pass, please.
Of course, madam. Do you want to buy a month bus pass, a 6-month bus pass, or a year pass?
Oh, just a month pass, please.
Right then. I'll just have to take a few details.
Yes, of course.
First of all, what's your name?
Natalie Jameson.
And how do you spell Jameson?
Jameson.
Thank you. And what's your address?
45 Forest Avenue, Newlands, Adelaide.
Is that Forest with 1 R or 2 Rs?
Just one.
And what's the postcode, please?
Oh yes, it's 8490.
Thanks. Now, what's your date of birth, if you don't mind me asking?
Not at all. It's the 13th of May, 1982.
I also need to know your telephone number here in Adelaide.
OK. I just need to check that, as I only moved here last week. Now, where is it? Here we are. It's 6249 7152. Do you need a code or anything?
Oh no, that's okay, thank you. Can I see your university card, please?
Yes, here it is.
Good, that's fine. Now, for which zone do you need a pass?
Well, I'm not sure. I was hoping you'd be able to help me, as I don't really know my way around here yet. As you know, I live in Newlands, and I have to get to the university campus in the centre of town every day.
Well, the university is in Zone 1, and Newlands has 2 zones. The side nearer to the town centre is Zone 5, but the far side is Zone 6. What road is it that you live in again?
Forest Avenue.
Let's see on this map. There it is. The nearest bus stop is in Zone 5. That's lucky. Zones 1 to 6 are $15 more expensive.
Great. Make the pass out for zones 1 to 5 then, please.
Before the conversation continues, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 6 to 10.
I've got some other questions too, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, this weekend my friend and I aren't doing anything, so we thought we'd take a trip out of town and visit somewhere new. Does the bus service run any trips like that?
Yes, we've got a selection of trips. I'll tell you about some of them.
Thanks.
Right. The first one goes up to MacDonald Nature Park. The bus leaves at 8 o'clock and takes about 2 hours to get there, and leaves for the return at 4:30 in the afternoon. Once there, you can walk around the nature trails. It's really nice, and the MacDonald River runs through there, and that's really beautiful, so take a camera with you. Then there's the Pearl Bay trip. The bus leaves at 9 a.m. and goes up the coast to Pearl Bay.
How far is that?
It's an hour away. Once there, you can walk along the cliffs up to Rocky Point, which has a famous view up the coast. Or you can just lie on the beach and swim. Don't forget to take your swimming gear and a towel. The water's pretty safe there, and there are always lifeguards. The bus arrives back in Adelaide at 5 p.m.
That sounds nice. What else?
Well, there's the Huron Gold Mine. It's just a half-day trip, leaving here at 9:30 a.m. and arriving back at 2 p.m. It only takes half an hour to get there, which is good. It's an old worked-out mine that has changed into a sort of museum. They have all the old equipment, and a guide takes you round some of the tunnels and shows you some of the techniques they used to use. You might even find some gold they missed.
Yeah, I could do with that.
It's pretty interesting, but the mines can be quite cold, so take a sweater. So how do those three sound?
Quite interesting. I really like the idea of going up the coast and spending a day on the beach, but my friend Karen will like the idea of the nature park. I'd better wait and check out with her what she wants to do before booking.
No problem at all. You just need to pop in sometime during the week and we'll make the booking.
Thanks very much. You've been very helpful.
No problem. See you later.
That is the end of section 1. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2. Section 2. You will hear a radio presenter interviewing a man about the Sydney Harbour Bridge. First you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully to the interview and answer questions 11 to 16.
Well, good morning again, everyone, and welcome to Perspective, the weekly New South Wales radio programme on subjects of general interest from our local area. Today I have in the studio Mr. George Simmons. Good morning, George.
Good morning, Anne.
So what are you going to talk to us about today, George?
Well, for people from New South Wales, and particularly Sydney, this will be of great interest, I hope. I'm going to tell you a little about Sydney Harbour Bridge.
Wow, that'll be so interesting.
I think so. To start with, I'd like to tell you a little about the size of the bridge. The arch span is 503 metres, and the weight of the steel arch is 39,000 tonnes. The summit is 134 metres above mean sea level, though it can actually increase by as much as 18 centimetres on hot days, as the result of steel expanding in heat. The two pairs of pylons at each end are about 89 metres high, and are made of concrete and granite. The steel used for the bridge was largely imported. About 79% came from the United Kingdom, but the rest was Australian made. The granite was quarried in Moruya down the coast, and the concrete is also Australian.
So most of the steel used to make our great bridge actually came from England?
Yes, I'm afraid so. However, the workforce were all Aussie.
Thank God for that. When was the bridge actually built?
The bridge was opened in 1932, but work first began in 1924, with the construction of the bridge approaches and spans, with two separate teams building the arch on each side, working towards each other. The arch was successfully joined on August the 19th, 1930. I'm afraid that working practices weren't very fair in those days, and the local government demolished 438 homes, which were in the way of the approaches, and as many as 800 families living there were displaced without compensation. The standards of industrial safety were inadequate too. 16 workers died during its construction, mainly from falling off the bridge.
I didn't realise that.
Yes, the bridge was formally opened on the 19th of March 1932 by the Premier of New South Wales, Mr. Jack Lang. When it was opened, it was the longest single-span steel arch bridge in the world, and it was one of the greatest engineering masterpieces of its time. Several songs were also composed in advance for the occasion, but these have now largely been lost or forgotten. However, 3 postage stamps were issued to commemorate the opening of the bridge, and these still exist. One of these stamps, with a face value of 5 shillings, is now worth several $100s today.
You now have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen to the rest of the interview and answer questions 17 to 20.
So that's the history of the bridge. Is the bridge still the same today as when it was built?
No, it's quite different. The basic structure is the same, of course. Originally, the bridge was constructed to carry a road, 2 sets of tram lines and railways. In 1957, the 2 tram lines were removed when Sydney abolished its trams, thus giving the bridge 2 more traffic lanes. Today it carries 8 traffic lanes, 2 railroad lanes and a footpath along its eastern side. One of the eastern traffic lanes is now a dedicated bus lane. The bridge is often crowded, and in 1992 the harbour tunnel was opened to help carry the traffic load. More than 160,000 vehicles cross the bridge each day. Before the harbour tunnel was opened, this figure was as high as 182,000, and would be much higher today if it were not for the tunnel. Pedestrians, horses and push bikes are not allowed on the bridge anymore.
Wow, the bridge actually carries that much?
Oh yes. Actually, before the harbour bridge opened, it was completely packed with railway carriages, trams and buses to stress test its load-bearing capacity. While it has had many traffic jams since, and 500,000 people walked across it on its 50th anniversary, it has probably never been asked to carry that much of a load since.
Amazing. And I suppose the toll for crossing the bridge has changed a bit too.
I'm afraid so. The initial toll charged for a car was 6 pence, while a horse and rider were charged 3 pence. Today the toll costs $3, but is only charged when travelling to the south as an efficiency measure to speed up traffic flow.
That is the end of section 2. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3. Section 3. You will hear 3 students discussing a survey they are going to do. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 27. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 27.
Hi Mel, hi Laura, sorry I'm a bit late. I got held up by the bus, it just didn't come for ages.
Don't worry, you're only a couple of minutes behind and we've only just been chatting.
Right then, we're here to organise the survey that we're going to do. Mel, you said that you discussed with Professor Donald Walker what type of survey we were going to do.
Yes, I spoke to Professor Walker 2 days ago, and I told him that the surveys we were considering were a telephone survey, a street survey and a mail survey. He thought that the phone one would be too expensive for us and the postal one would take too long, so we decided we should do the street one.
I think that's right. If we do the street one, then we can get the whole thing done in one day and we can get on with analysing the results.
Yes, that's right. Now there are some other things that Professor Walker wanted to know about. How big should the survey be?
Well, the ideal figure for a survey such as this should be about 1,000 people, but that will take us about a month to get that many people, and we just don't have that much time. On the other hand, if we just choose 100 people, the survey won't be statistically significant.
So what about something in the middle? What about 600?
Still too many. That'll take us ages. 400?
Let's split the difference and say 500.
Okay.
And how many questions? If there are too many, we'll just have the same problem.
Professor Walker said we should have no more than 10 or people get bored. 10 then?
I think even fewer. 8.
I think 3 fewer again to make sure we can get the numbers done quickly.
OK, I agree with that.
I'm not sure, but I suppose so.
You now have some time to look at questions 28 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the discussion and answer questions 28 to 30.
Now, Professor Walker asked where we were going to do the survey.
Does he want to avoid that area then?
Probably. Now, we can either all stay together or split up and do different locations.
Well, if we split up, then I think we've got a better chance of getting more people surveyed.
Yes, I agree with Laura.
OK. Now, I made a list of the possible locations in Westley where we could station ourselves. There's the town square, at the entrance to the train station, at the university cafeteria, outside Dobbin's department store, on the corner of the High Street and College Road, the bus station and the corner of High Street and Wilkins Road. What do you think?
I think the square is great, but the people at the train station will be travelling and often in a hurry.
I agree with all of that, and I think the bus station will have the same problem as the train station.
OK, that's those two out then.
I think the other ones in town were good too. The cafeteria will have too many students, and that will create too great a bias to our survey. We need a good cross-section of the population, and anywhere too close to the university won't give us that.
Laura's right. So, out of the other town ones, I think that the two on the High Street corners are good.
I don't agree. The High Street corner with College Road would be good, but the corner with Wilkins Road is too far out. Not enough people will come by there.
Yes, Mel's right there. We should use Dobbin's department store instead.
I can see your point. OK, that's settled then. All three of us will be stationed in town then, but not the Wilkins Road position.
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4. Section 4. You will hear part of a further education marine biology lecture. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this further education lecture on marine biology. Today, we're going to look at the coelacanth. The discovery of the coelacanth has been compared to finding a dinosaur walking around today, over 85 million years after it went extinct. The story began a few days before Christmas in 1938, when the first living coelacanth was discovered off the east coast of South Africa, at the mouth of the Chalumna River. The fish was caught in a shark gill net by Captain 𝐿hen𝐏 and his crew, who, recognizing the bizarre nature of their catch, alerted the local museum in the small South African town of East London. The director of the East London Museum at the time was Miss Marjorie Courtney Latimer, after whom the coelacanth was eventually named. Miss Courtney Latimer offered bounties to fishermen for unfamiliar fish. It was Miss Courtney Latimer who alerted the prominent South African ichthyologist Dr. J.L.B. Smith, who initially identified the fish, and subsequently informed the world about this amazing discovery. This first coelacanth led to the discovery of the first documented population off the remote Comoros Islands between the mainland of Africa and Madagascar. For 60 years, this was presumed to be the only coelacanth population in existence. Originally, it was a concern that the coelacanth might have a very limited range, and that overfishing along the Comoros Islands might wipe it out. However, scientists were amazed when, on July 30th, 1998, an American scientist discovered a coelacanth population in Indonesia. Dr. Mark Erdman was on a honeymoon trip to the area investigating a coral reef research site when he spotted a strange fish being wheeled into the fish market. He recognized the fish as a coelacanth and snapped a picture before it was sold. Dr. Erdmann's subsequent research revealed that the people from Sulawesi had a name for it: Raja, King of the Sea. The Sulawesi coelacanth colony is about 10,000 kilometers east of where the coelacanths were previously known to occur in the western Indian Ocean. Both Sulawesi and Comoros coelacanths are quite different from all other living fish, but perhaps the most interesting feature of the coelacanth is that it has paired lobed fins, which move in a similar fashion to our arms and legs. Coelacanths also have an extra lobe on their tail and a vertebral column that is not fully developed. They are the only living animal to have a fully functional intercranial joint, a division that separates the ear and brain from the nasal organs and eye, and allows the front part of the head to be lifted when the fish is feeding. The brown Sulawesi coelacanth and the steel blue Comoros coelacanth share these unusual characteristics. The discovery of the coelacanth in 1938 is still considered to be the zoological find of the century. This living fossil comes from a lineage of fish that was thought to have been extinct since the time of the dinosaurs. Coelacanths are known from the fossil record dating back over 360 million years, and peaked in abundance about 240 million years ago. Before 1938, they were believed to have become extinct approximately 80 million years ago, after mysteriously disappearing from the fossil record. How could the coelacanth disappear for over 80 million years, and then turn up alive and well in the 20th century? The answer seems to be that fossil coelacanths appeared to live in environments with clay sedimentation with plenty of volcanic activity. Modern coelacanths, both in the Comoros and Sulawesi, inhabit caves and overhangs in vertical marine reefs at about 200 meters, environments not conducive to fossil creation. In 1991, scientists got a better understanding of the fish when the Comoros got their independence from France, and French restrictions on research were lifted. This allowed scientists to study the fish off the Comoros Islands. As the animal hides in underwater caves some 300 to 700 feet down during the day, and comes out at night to feed, diving is not an option, and previously only fishermen specimens had been available for study. But this time the scientists had their own submarine, so they could study the coelacanth in its natural habitat through portholes.
That is the end of section 4. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of listening test 5. In the IELTS test, you would now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet.